Hello, good evening, everybody. How are we doing this evening? Welcome back to Real Talk with Shuvo. I'm Shuvo from Success Zante. I'm the CEO of Success Zante, and we started this series of talks with different leaders, thought leaders in the country to to uh, to give the certainty to our audience, to our community to our community that even though there's uncertainty out there, how we can give certainty to the people around us. So today we have a very exciting, amazing gentleman with us, and I will be introducing him shortly. Be with us. We will be back in 3 minutes. Hello, everybody. Hi. Good to see you all at Real Talk with Shuvo. And as I mentioned, today we have a very exciting gentleman with us, a very calm and quiet gentleman, but the excitement comes out every time he talks because he's a storyteller. Today we have a storyteller among us. So just to invite him formally, before I invite him, I would like to, Enosh, can you join us? Yes. Hi, Rosh. Good to see you. Hold
Sorry,
on.
I was on mute. Good to
I'm
see you.
having some echo here. Hold on. Okay. Should be okay. Yes, better. I was actually literally listening to myself. Repeating. Okay, great. So, Enosh, welcome to Real Talk with Shuvo. So, and we are very excited to have you here. And Enosh is is a cheerleader for any startup, right? And a cheerleader for a good friend, a cheerleader for the community, right? And so, just to give a brief introduction of Enosh before we start, now he's the co-founder of ReadMe.lk, which is a very unique website, and most of the tech startups are through this website. He has been taking them global, and if you want to learn about whatever is new happening in the tech arena, this is the place to be. And he will share more about it today. And Enosh has inspired more than so many startups around him. And he's the founder and the corporate to articulate their story. Okay, so he specialized in storytelling, and in a very captivative narrative way. So public relation, digital marketing, and content strategy, those are the three areas he's specialized in. Now, he's an entrepreneur with a decade-long journey of navigating in the digital media publishing industry, highly networked within the Sri Lankan startup community, impactful in articulating stories for startups, founders, and entrepreneurs through PR and digital media publicity, and working closely with a number of handpicked established corporates, consulting on the media strategies and steering corporate narratives, right? Very heavy, but simple way, if you want to describe this gentleman, a very dedicated, very honest, a man with a lot of integrity. And I love being around him. And I was just share with him before before we joined the talk. So there is this community called Peekaboo. So Enosh came and did a presentation at Peekaboo on the book called "What Do Successful People Do Before Their Breakfast." So I thought, probably I'm not going to read this book, but let me go and listen to it because Enosh is presenting. So in that book, so he mentioned about that when you get up in the morning, within 6 minutes, get ready, and if you want to go to exercise or do something, get ready and go out. So after listening to that, since every morning I have been practicing it. So I was talking to Enosh that he's responsible for that. That day, what I've learned. So, and that has had an impact on me. Thank you, Enosh, for that. So with that, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here. And I know you're quite busy. Most of the time, I see you on the startup webinar community that what you have started in Sri Lanka, which is another good initiative by you. I simply love it. So my first question to you, my friend. So would like to know this unique website called readme.lk, right? So so what is the, you're a storyteller, so what's the story behind it?
Well, first of all, thank you, Shuvo, for having me on your show. I think a lot of great men and women have come and gone, so I'm honored to be here. And nobody.
So you're one of them as well.
Getting there maybe, and I think nobody has given me such a beautiful intro before this. So.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, great.
So yeah, sure. I think we actually started a startup to tell stories of other startups. Simply put.
Okay.
I think it all started maybe about it's almost a decade now. When we realized that newspapers, predominantly newspapers and traditional media was only covering and telling stories mostly about corporates, and even when it comes to tech related news, what they do is they talk about conferences and who's the chief guest and who lit the oil lamp and things like that. So it never covered anything to do with what's the actual tech behind.
But isn't that the important part of any of the seminars we go to?
True. I mean, see, when it comes to publicity, yes, that works in a way. But when it comes to actually taking your story out to the world, what actually matters is, what's the value that you bring to the world. So as a startup, what do you offer? So I think where traditional media usually stumble is when they do not understand tech or tech-enabled products and services. They do not usually put that straightforward across on traditional media. So I think that's pretty much like the gap that we saw, and then we got in. Never was meant to be a business, but started off with passion. It started off with just a website and a Facebook page. Back when Facebook page was also new and considered to be cool.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Exactly. Okay. So you saw the gap. So you see there is a problem. So you turn that problem into an opportunity, and that's how the whole ReadMe.lk came about. I was reading some of the articles, which is quite interesting to see. So how some of the brands have been successful digitally, right? And even to the point that data, how to use data, and why not to use data, like that. So those articles were very intriguing, and most of them are local companies. Some of the companies what you have mentioned it's amazing, good to see. Okay, great. So my next question. So how is I know you're very passionate about on startups in Sri Lanka, right? And then I have attended your F Up Friday. I simply love that show. In fact, it was offline. I watched it. I think Imran and Yusra was there the day I came, and there was another gentleman. So okay, so when you look at Sri Lankan and how in Sri Lanka, how is the ecosystem of startup in Sri Lanka?
Well, at the moment, it looks very promising because I think maybe 10 years ago, not too long from today, these words like startup and investors, funding, all of these were like buzzwords. And when we started, I mean, I know a few friends who started along with us, and those were like people like Danika, Chamira, Fatih. So these are all the old guards who started back
Okay.
during that time. So I think pretty much all of us, just dove in, not even knowing what the word startup meant, probably. And I think because over time that these initiatives and these daring individuals started doing something that it has come to a very promising stage right now. And I would say this is going to be like, I think 2020, and this decade is going to be something which we are going to look back and say, hey, this decade actually made a difference. Because I think we are extremely poised right now to do a lot of wonderful things. Really.
Okay. So I was listening to. Thank you very much for sharing that. I was listening to this gentleman Siddharth. He's an IT specialist back in from India. So he was saying that there will be a lot of forced entrepreneurship that will be coming out at this point, because thanks to this present situation, if you look at the positive side of it, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. See, the thing is, I think we were just going on a rat race, and I think everybody knows this by now, and this has been like a very constant idea that has been uh, been passed around, that we've been in a world that it's like it has been a rat race. We've been just doing again and again the same old routine thing, and right now I think pretty much every company, all big corporates and small startups to entrepreneurs, all of us are challenged to think out of the box and come up with new ways of doing things. So pretty much the new normal is going to be not normal anymore. So, uh, this is going to be, so when you talk about things which are new, it naturally goes into the world of startups, because you're going to talk about, you're going to initiate new ideas, new ways of doing things, and all of this is it takes you towards towards startups.
Right.
And what best to do other than get into entrepreneurship.
Right, got it. So maybe you can share with the audience some of the startup you have seen right after present situation when it arose, right? From there, there's a lot of changes, positive changes, and maybe one or two example if you can share with the audience, maybe with some of your friends who you have seen they're working, they quit their job, or not, maybe not literally the same example, but some example would be nice.
I think I can pick some good examples. So let's probably, I think more when you look at what happened, and we straight went into a lockdown. Even startups had to like rethink what they're doing. It was kind of like a reset button for across the board. I mean, obviously it was like a reset button for the entire globe. And then some startups that immediately come to my mind is startups like, they are not even startups anymore, like Pick Me and Yoho Bed, maybe even corporates like what Keels did,
Right.
Cargill's did, what Satoso did. All of this is like it. You wouldn't have imagined that these people would have done this maybe 4 or 5 months before. Uh,
Mhm.
Pandemic happened, and suddenly you see all of this. It's pretty much like an accelerant. And again, we all know that now, but that's reality. And how all of this suddenly accelerated, and we started seeing new change. So maybe from employee perspective, I think um, there is a lot of, maybe there was a lot of disruption. People were laid off, and there was a lot of disruption. But then again, it's how you see things. It's nothing exclusive to one set of people or one country or one city. This is like it's a world scenario. So what good or bad, how you perceive it, what happened or what is happening is happening to the entire world. So
Mhm.
how you perceive this, and start looking at this in a new way, maybe look at this as an opportunity of how you can come out of this and leverage this situation to do something new, is pretty much what every one of us individually we need to be thinking about.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's so true. We can say that okay, economy is not good, but then again, we make our own economy. If
Yeah.
we have that positive economy within ourselves, if we can create a small unit, let's say a family, if we have a positive economy in the family, for so many families can get together and have a positive impact in the economy. I know it's very easier said than done, but then again, it's a matter of focus, right? How you focus, right? So okay. Before I ask my next question, ladies and gentlemen, a few of the guests have actually audience have joined recently. So I'm in conversation with the co-founder of ReadMe.lk, Enosh, a gentleman who's known in the startup world in Sri Lanka. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask, and he would be more than happy to answer. Now, my next question. Okay, what? Okay, it's startup. Okay, fine. It's a we are doing that, but how to overcome the initial challenges when you start up somewhere, start your business model or starting something. How do you do that?
Well, probably that's not the way to look at it. I mean, starting a startup is in itself is a challenge. So
Right.
you're, you're knowingly getting into a challenge. So I wouldn't say how do you overcome a challenge. I mean, you can overcome a challenge, but you shouldn't look at startup as the challenge. It is also
Right.
a challenge itself.
Oh, I like. Can you repeat that? What you said? I like that. What you said.
No, I mean, it's not a challenge. A startup in itself is a challenge. So you should not be
Right.
thinking as a thing that you just overcome. Uh,
Right. Okay.
it's
Okay.
not something that you overcome. It's something that you opt yourself into
Right. Right.
on a daily basis.
Okay. Got it. So
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So to answer your question, you asked like how do you
Yeah.
overcome this? Um, well, I think for people who are thinking of getting into startups, I think you are actually looking at a complete new lifestyle. things might work, it might not work, it might take months or it might take years. It's all about you having that passion and drive to go for what you are actually aiming for or dreaming for. So it's something that you get into and completely change your lifestyle, and then you just pursue it. There is no two questions about it.
Right. Got it. So don't perceive it as a challenge, perceive it as an opportunity and what's coming to us. Okay. I was in conversation with Sari last time. I remember you were there. So I asked a question about entrepreneurship, right? So so what's the difference between an entrepreneurship and startup?
Well,
I know I might be asking a very obvious question, but I wanted to hear it from the specialist.
So there is something that is pretty much, I think, you cannot change about this, and sometimes this might be the harsh truth. Probably entrepreneurship is not for everyone. So
Right.
let's say 100 people in a city, not all 100 can become entrepreneurs, because not that they don't have the knowledge and experience and the know-how to do it. It's used mostly about, are you built to go through those hard times? Are you programmed in a way that you see through all the challenges and hard times and then still pursue? It's like blind faith, right? So it's almost like a religion. You just have faith, and even though you don't have the signs or the calling,
Right.
you
Okay.
just go for it, because something says that this is the right path to go. So I think startup is pretty much the same.
Okay.
So I actually lost track of your question. If you can
Right.
ask.
So okay, got it. So actually, I didn't want to stop you. My question was,
Entrepreneurship.
I'm talking about entrepreneurship. Yeah, what's the difference between entrepreneurship and startup?
Yes. So entrepreneurship is pretty much, if you can take ownership of what you're doing. So let's say you're doing a specific role in your company, or even a startup. You taking ownership of what you do, and then within your sphere, you exercise a certain level of your own vision, and you want to make a change within that sphere. That is pretty much entrepreneurship, where you don't wait for instructions, you don't wait for other people to tell you what to do. You have your own mind to think, and you know what's best to do, and then you know what's best to do for the entire company to strive forward.
Mm.
And that's pretty much entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
Mhm.
It's again nothing completely different from entrepreneurship. It's just that
Yes,
you're
you're
seated in
doing
different
it within the
seats.
bigger, yeah.
Yeah. Probably, I think maybe the biggest difference is in entrepreneurship. I think you have a soft padding, like a cushion that you can fall onto. You're
Right,
not directly exposed to 100% of the risk. Maybe
right.
entrepreneurship, yeah, you're like head on your
That's
your.
it. Yes. Bring it on. Yeah, yeah. Got it. Great. Okay, so so what are the support system a startup has locally and internationally?
Oh,
In Sri Lanka, what are the support system?
that is there is quite. I mean, maybe compared to a few years back to now, I think there is a lot right now. I wouldn't say this is ideal and this is enough, but we are making good progress. I mean, just to name a few, there is ICTA, the Spiralation program. There is Hatch, who is doing a lot of great initiatives. Uh, as of recent, so I'm involved in something called the Founder Institute. So we are bringing programs like this. There's other programs like Seed Stars, Angel Hack, Startup Weekend. There's so many good things, and ecosystems, events which are happening. So maybe about a decade ago, maybe it was too quiet.
Mm.
Maybe 3 or 5 years ago, things started happening. Right now, I would say, we are in a very exciting time right now. A lot of
Mm.
good things. I mean, even just see webinars, right? That the same
Mhm.
group that you told, startup webinars. I mean, every single day,
Yes,
got three, four, startup related webinars happening there.
yes.
So it's, I mean, probably right now we are thinking, that's it's too much, but maybe 3 years ago, we would have been, dying to go for these kind of events. So I think we are seeing good progress, and I think it's a promising time. There's a lot of good things happening this decade.
Great. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So at the moment, there's like an overwhelming number of influx of webinars. That's true, and that has. Well, but I totally agree with you. If we see last 10 years, there have been a lot of changes, lot of improvement, development happen in that area. So we have a question from Hasini. So what she's saying is that what is the mindset of consumers on startups? Are they embracing service and products of new and small businesses?
Maybe I probably not be able to tell that, in a way. It's not like black and white there.
Yeah.
It
But
all
what do you see? What do you perceive?
There is people who support intentionally, but there is also a segment of people who look at it as, too new. Maybe we can't trust them enough. That kind of segment is also there. But maybe looking at the positive side, there are people out there who intentionally are willing to support. So even though there are, let's say, for example, if there is a big corporate versus a startup, providing the same service, maybe just if you remove the price tag out of it, because price tag is also a deciding factor, but just only for this, hypothetically, for this argument, if you take the price tag away, there are people who are still intentionally willing to support a startup just because it's a startup. They just want to see startups grow. And I've seen people like this, and definitely these are the support systems that we need especially in a country like ours. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's like black and white, but yeah, we do have support systems like that.
Okay. So people are getting open to the idea. That's what you're saying.
Definitely. I mean, good market is a good example.
Yes, that's a good example.
So many people who just want to try out something, who want to buy something just to support another startup. I think that's a good example.
Yes. Okay, my next question, starting a startup, right? So we always say that, finance is an issue, seed money is an issue. Is it really an issue?
It can be an issue.
Okay.
Again, there's multiple factors that you need to look into. For number one is, why you're seeking that funding, who's seeking that funding for, and what for you're seeking that funding, and then where do you look at. I think all of these factors come in.
Right.
But I think see, there is always this fundamental there is a dilemma of, should you start chasing investors or should you start chasing customers?
Actually, that's the reason I asked you the question.
That's actually a real problem. See, because I think there are sometimes, maybe this is also taken in a wrong way, where probably some new founders, entrepreneurs, they immediately think that, the moment you have an idea, the very next step is you need to start running for investment. Probably
Right.
that's not the way to go about it, because it's like, even the investor is also like, it's not free money. The investor also is looking for ideas which can, which is actually viable, and it can prove something, by looking at it, by some numbers, and then that's where even investors also would like to put money. So most of, I think, maybe, looking at how hackathons, the teams that come out of hackathons, and maybe some of the entrepreneurs who like start off very new, probably a wrong conception is that, having a great idea, they think that, that idea deserves funding, where usually it's not the case, because you can have a great idea, but if you have a not so great team, your idea is going to go down the drain.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that yeah, it's so true. I mean, complexity can be the enemy of execution, right?
Yeah.
So that's always been a been a challenge like that. So you mentioned about hackathon, right? So can you please elaborate what is a hackathon for the audience? I know it sounds like a very powerful word. So what is it?
Well, I think just to put it in a very straightforward, in a nutshell, it's like, you put together a bunch of people, and then either like overnight, or over a period of maybe a short period of time, you try to hack a solution for a particular problem. So that's pretty much like a hackathon. So let's say, for example, you need to. I think a good example would be, the social distancing. So how do you find a solution for social distancing? So do you come up with an app, or do you come up with like a, let's say, a Bluetooth solution, or is there something new? So all of the, I mean, it's a new problem, and there can be multiple solutions. We don't know what works, what doesn't work. So a good thing to do is, do a hackathon, like host a hackathon where you get, lots of good people, who are thinking in the same lines, put them in teams and then ask them to come up with solutions. So it's usually like a gamified way of, you host it like a program, and then you have awards. Corporates do it to find good talent. Sometimes corporates
Okay.
do find solutions for any existing problems that they had. Even locally, I think it became. I think it picked up locally also, where corporates started. Earlier, it was more like, everybody wanted just to do a hackathon. But I think as of recent few hackathons which happened, corporates also, I think, looked at in a way that they can gain out of it. Maybe gain in terms of good talent, gain in terms of
Yeah, ideas.
ideas. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much what a hackathon is.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Thank you for educating us what hackathon is. So I have a question from Denzel. So Denzel Pereira. So he's actually a brand specialist. He has been our show as well. So he's asking, but how can we convert our idea to a presentable report? And are there any shortcuts, any prescribed methods?
This is for what purpose specifically? So it's, let's say, if this needs to be put into a presentation, idea into a presentation, it also depends on the purpose of it. It can be for investment, it can be for a business client, for various different purposes. So let's say if it's for
So I think he's mentioning about investments. Yeah, because
yeah.
he mentioned about earlier that, okay, so what you give the insight about the investors, which is a very good idea. So based on that, so how to convert, how to put it in a presentable way?
I think if you can just pinpoint pinpoint the actual problem, as in, just narrow it down to the fundamental problem that you're trying to solve, that would pretty much, give you like an entire, I mean, it'll give light to what you're trying to present. You would figure out what comes next afterwards. So it's basically, if you just pinpoint that problem. And then also, I mean, one of the things to look at in terms of presentation, or pitching to an investor, is, would a 5-year-old understand? You pitch to someone. Would a 5-year-old understand is like a barometer that you can have for yourself, that you are not confused.
Right.
Because sometimes it's again, it's wrong to think that, the heavier words you use, and the more complicated that you sound, that you can go for bigger investment. But sometimes that works against you, because investors are not readily interested in your idea. uh, they would just wait for, like, in the first 30 seconds to see, they'll quickly assess you based on, your appearance, what you're trying to pitch, and all of that. I think all of that matters. Your personality, to what you're trying to pitch, your attitude, all of that matters. It's not just the presentation. So if you miss this at the first 30 seconds, or maybe the first minute, you lose the plot.
Right.
So all of this needs to come in place, and I think some startup programs also have this as a test. A good thing to do is, let's say, if you're running a startup, try to write what you're trying to solve, maybe in 2 sentences, and email that to um, uh, maybe selected 1 or 2 good friends that you know. Someone you think that, who are good enough to understand, what you're saying. Send it to them and ask them to explain it back to you. if they struggle to explain it, that means, you have to work on your pitch. I mean, first of all, to put that into 2 sentences, you need to work hard. You need to first figure out, how best to put it in 2 sentences. If you can't put it in 1 or 2 sentences, that means, you're still confused about what you're trying to do.
Okay, brilliant. I mean, I love the tip what you give just now. It's so, and it's very practical, and and then of course the friend has to be a trustworthy friend. So basically, what you're saying is the formula of KISS, right? Keep it short and sweet, right? So so brilliant. So so next question, Udani. Udani is asking, so what is the best combination of formula for a startup according to you? What is the best combination?
I didn't get what she
What is
meant.
the best combination? Okay, probably the next question, what Hasini asked, he asked another question, probably is almost similar. So what she said that most of the investors look for financial success rather than to an idea itself. So how do you get the right combination of both?
Again, it all depends on what we need to think is, it's almost, so I would put it in a way where, how you win the trust of investors. It has a range, so it's not like, there is a clear way of, this will get a yes or this will get a no. There is a range of, people who have, tolerance levels. So sometimes your idea might be like shitty idea, right?
Yeah.
But if they see you as an entrepreneur who's capable of learning fast, they would just invest on you. Or pretty much all investors actually invest on the entrepreneur themselves. It's very low that, it's an idea, unless the idea is like, massively out of this world. It's mostly for the entrepreneur. But see, even if the idea is like an out of this world, still it needs somebody to execute. So I think it just, comes back to, who's executing this idea. So if the entrepreneur, it's the team, the attitudes, personality, all of that matters. It maybe the second layer is where, the know-hows, the knowledge and all of that comes, because, anybody can learn, but you cannot learn personality and attitude overnight. That's something that, it's within you. So that's something that only you can change. You have to you need to think internally and change it, or nobody else can change it you. But somebody can mentor you for the additional knowledge that you need. The skills and knowledge, somebody else can mentor you. So it's always what actually matters is who you are and what you're trying to do, and your passion, or maybe the right word is obsession.
Obsession, yes.
So if that is there, the rest will just fall into place.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, the investors, they look for, when they invest really on with for the entrepreneurs, the person behind it, right? They always look for it and how fast. And it doesn't have to be monetary investment. It can be investment from knowledge side, mentoring side. Not only the money, the experience also matters. Certain experience matters a lot. Okay, so what Denzel is asking next, what's the recipe of someone wants to be a social entrepreneur? And the second question is, and if you have a big idea, how can we pitch it to people to find?
To
So if you sorry, pitch it. Sorry, and if you have a big idea, how can we pitch it for people to find? So how can people find it if there is a big idea? So first question is, what is the recipe of someone wants to start a social entrepreneurship? So what they should do? That's the first question.
Okay.
Let's take that first. Then I'll ask the second one. Okay.
Okay. So again, I think it's not a good way of looking at it as a recipe. It's not a recipe in the first place. Maybe recipes, you can just put in the ingredients and then you can have the way of doing it, and you come up with your dish. But maybe entrepreneurship or even social entrepreneurship, it's not a recipe. It's more like what you're trying, what your cause is, what you're trying to do. And maybe if you want it to be sustainable, what your business model is. those are the things that what actually matters. So if you, again, the thing is this, I mean, if you think from a perspective of, if you're actually looking at social entrepreneurship, if you really care about something in terms of that, you would even die for it, like a cause, you would do it anyway. You're not going to look at entrepreneurship or business model or anything. You would just do it anyway. Those kind of people, just because of that, determination, they eventually figure out a model. But let's say trying to look at social entrepreneurship from the angle of, okay, let me start something, let me look at social entrepreneurship and dive into it. Maybe that's not the ideal way of looking at it. Because when you, first of all, when you say social entrepreneurship, the cause comes first, and what you're trying to solve comes first, and then after that, you think through that entire thing and figure out, okay, how do you come up with a model for this, a business model.
Right. Okay, got it. So if you look, so you focus on the cause, and then and do the business model around it. So we gotta, okay. So okay. So second part of the question, right? So thank you, Denzel, for correcting that. So what you want to say that if let's say if you have a big idea, how can you pitch it to the people to fund it? So initially it says fine, but it's fun. Yes, that's the word. That's how we couldn't figure out. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sure.
So how do you look for a fund, people to invest on it? How do you fund it?
Fund, okay.
Yeah.
The best
how do you pitch to the people to get the funds?
The best advice is, if you have a big idea, don't tell it to anyone. Just keep it to yourself.
Okay.
That's something that a lot of new entrepreneurs or founders, they think is, if it's like a great idea, I need to, like, sometimes there are people who, like, who want to talk to investors, or there are people that I have come across. They say, I have this great idea.
Right.
It's going to change the world. And then you ask, okay, what is it? Well, I can't tell that right now, but how should I go about it?
Right.
So, I mean, see, ideas, again, I think I told this earlier as well. I think ideas doesn't really matter anything unless it's executed. And then when it comes to execution, who executes it? And then who can see through that entire journey of executing? Because just because there is a great idea doesn't mean that, the moment you start executing it, that everything will go according to what you want.
Yes.
There are the challenges, failures and all of this. So the person behind this is what really matters, not necessarily a person, maybe the person or the team is what really matters. So if you actually have a big idea, I think why wait? Just start pitching. Even pitching is a process, right? I think you would start learning it while pitching it, because if you pitch to 100 people, let's say you pitch to 99 people, you would know why 99 people rejected you. And every single time you pitch, you know why people rejected you, and you can probably see how investors react to you and what ticks them and what type of things, what are the things that they get interested when you talk. So that in itself will refine. Let's say you go to the 100th investor, so your pitch is already refined 99 times.
Right.
Which is like, so I think this is something that I still remember, which my headmaster at school once told. This is because again, this was at an assembly. So our assembly has like about 1,000 kids, and there was this one guest speaker that day, and he was like talking about motivation and stuff like that. And then he had questions on the board, and then he opened for questions. I mean, back then in our school, we rarely get speakers like this who come and speak in the first place. And then when we opened for questions, again, that was something new, a new experience, like us being able to ask questions.
Right.
We ask questions from the teacher.
Always other way around. Yes.
It was at an assembly, and when the headmaster asked the entire audience to ask questions, involuntarily my hand went up.
Not surprised.
I started hesitating because my hand went up, but then when I was asked to ask the question, first of all, there is no mic, so you had to shout your question.
Right.
And then I was like hesitant. I was like, oh my God, 1,000 people are looking at me. What question am I going to ask? Is it going to be good or bad, or am I going to look stupid? That moment, the headmaster, he quickly took the mic and he told, you might as well be stupid for 5 minutes than be stupid for the rest of your life.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome.
I was embarrassed on that day because the headmaster told me that. But
Right.
I think once I started while growing up, when I
Yes.
read that again and again, I realized how much of a difference that made. Because probably I think that day I probably would have been embarrassed to death
Right.
by going through that experience.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't ask my question though.
Okay. But still, that experience really had a good impact, So that's why I can now I know why everything comes to when you talk about things, why things are different when you talk about it. Great, thank you for sharing. So yeah. So my last question to you. So startup, right? Is it a buzzword, or when you look at it, coming 10 years? Do you think there will be a how do you see the startup space in Sri Lanka coming 10 years? What would you say?
Startup, is it a buzzword? I would say I would have to. I mean, I would have to say yes.
I knew it.
It's probably overused. And probably I think after lockdown it probably might get even overused.
Right.
Even
So this is what I like about you. You will tell upfront whatever you make it very real. Yes.
but that's actually true. So we soon after lockdown we worked with a few corporates, and they wanted put out news and articles out. And what we realized is the word digitalization and startups have been heavily, for a better word, maybe.
Like a better word, yes.
So maybe just to keep this PG-13, yeah, I mean it was heavily used.
Got it. Yeah. Just say it in your mind. Yeah. Got it.
So I think it's definitely things like words like digitalization and startups are sometimes used out of context, and sometimes even the corporates or startups who are using it are not using it for the correct reasons. But in terms of startups itself, there's a lot happening right now, and I'm actually excited to be alive at this moment, because I can see how probably I think each of us would love to be either before things started or maybe after 10 years 20 years from now, when things are really high up on the fifth gear, to be alive then. But right now I kind of I see that 10 years ago I saw how things were not so fancy, and things were dead boring, silent, nothing happening, just one or two blips here and there. And then fast forward 10 years, and slowly this ecosystem growing, and then you see a lot of exciting things happening. And sometimes it's happening too fast, a lot of things happening all around you. It's too fast, which is a good thing. So what I actually believe is this decade is going to be really exciting for startups, and pretty much for everyone, even for corporates to start thinking startups. Even corporates will have to adapt. Startups also has to adapt. So startups adapting is much easier. I wouldn't say it's an easy ride for startups also. There's a lot of challenges, and especially after lockdown, there's a lot of challenges for startups themselves, because the difference is usually startups usually don't have the muscle to make immediate changes. They don't have, even though they're agile, even though they're able to maneuver quickly, sometimes they don't have enough strength and enough again say runway to do that. Corporates have all those resources, but they're stuck in an old mindset. So usually the better thing to do is if startups has the resources of a corporate but things like startups, if corporates has the mindset of startups and still get to use its own resources, right. That's the best marriage. So right. every corporate who can either merge with startups or think like startups and operate in that way, or if every startup has abilities to create value and then get partnerships or collaborations with corporates and be able to operate in that way, I think that would be amazing. We need to start seeing things like that. So there's been efforts where corporates are trying to reach out to startups and do partnerships and collaborations. There are efforts where startups are trying to reach the other way around, and maybe things are starting to happen now. I probably from behind the scenes I see there has been efforts. Not all of them are successful. Sometimes they are doing it for the wrong reasons. Sometimes it's only for PR. It's just for the PR.
Only for PR. Yes. Yeah.
But at least it's a start, right? So
yeah. So the momentum is building up. Yes. So that's what we require. So because once you have the momentum, and execution is the key. So when you can have the idea, like you said, you can have the idea, but as long as you don't execute it, it's in your head. It just doesn't work at one point, right? At no point, actually, not only one point. Great. So thank you so much for sharing time with us, and I really enjoyed this conversation of ours, and I thought a lot of good points were pointed out and taken out, and then and thank you very much for sharing that knowledge and making that impact, and thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best with readme.lk, ladies and gentlemen. Please go and visit the website, readme.lk, a brilliant website. I have been going and reading some of the articles there, which is quite inspiring, intriguing. It makes you think, and you go like, oh, this is also happening in Sri Lanka. Honestly speaking, that was my real reaction on that. Not that I'm saying we are behind, but then again, people must know about it, and I appreciate what you're doing for taking this story, local stories, global. Thank you so much for that.
That's what we want to do, Shuvo. So I think it's also a challenging journey. Being in the content space, it's not all like it's not bed of roses always.
Yes.
One of the most challenging interests is globally, I would say. So that's what we also on a daily basis striving to do. Take these stories to the world, and
Right.
I think we are doing something. We're doing something right. So
yes.
We are in that journey. But thank you so much, Shuvo. Thank you for having me in this talk with you. I actually enjoyed more than you did.
Okay.
I'm actually honored to be in the lineup of all the great people who came before me. So I'm thank you so much.
So I'll repeat what I said. You're one of them. Okay. Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Enosh. Thank you. And dear audience, thank you so much for joining us. And so next week there is a surprise guest. We're having actually a special show right before. So 5th of August is next Wednesday. It's gonna be the election day. So right before the election day, 4th of August, we're having a special guest who's going to talk about, who has been to our show already, a brand specialist, but he's going to talk about this branding. Is it required to do a political campaign as well or not? It's a very interesting topic. I'm really looking forward to it. In fact, just before going into this, coming into this program, we just decided that we're going to have that. So I invite all of you to come and be a part of it. And with that, thank you so much, audience, for your time. Thank you, Enosh, for your time. And I will see you next week. Thank you. Have a good evening.